Provincial Legislature that the cannabis sector will receive more attention from his government in the next 5 years as part of growing the economy. This follows an announcement by Eastern Cape Premier Oscar Mabuyane last year that this sector will be prioritized by government in order to enhance job opportunities for the youth. Makhura says they are already in consultation with different national departments on how the industry can be further industrialized. Makhura delivered his State of the Province address at Gauteng, north of Pretoria. My colleague Natasha Phiri is in Gauteng following this for us. Natasha, it certainly has been an interesting one, focusing, I suppose, on 10 key areas. The very last one did happen to be the cannabis industry itself. Anything particular with regards to numbers and exactly how much they plan to deliver and get out of these particular sectors?
Well, definitely, Arabile. Of course, that actually caught my attention. Premier there saying that they will be focusing on the cannabis sector. As to how, we're not so clear. I didn't give much numbers on that. But actually, I'm standing with various leaders of political parties in Gauteng and, of course, the legislature. Let's just start off with the FF Plus, Mr. Anton, possibly get his reaction to the Premier's State of the Province address. I mean, what strikingly caught my attention was that the Premier said he was also going to focus on the cannabis sector. I mean, how is the FF Plus actually taking this Premier's directive?
Well, we'll have to see what his plans are, the specifics are around it. We support the idea that it can be used for medicinal purposes. So research in that area is quite necessary, and I think there might be some market for that, and the market can be created for that, and hopefully we can export it to other countries. But we'll have to see what the specifics are around that. We haven't heard much about it.
Well, the Premier has set a lot of goals this time around in his State of the Province address. He said that 100 schools will be built over 10 years, 6 hospitals will be built over the next 10 years. Is this actually practical?
Well, once again, we'll have to see what the practical plans are to implement. We know that service delivery is actually going backwards in Gauteng. We see many departments are underspending the budgets because of a lack of capability. And we'll have to test them against his word whether he will be able to fulfill that. And we do hope that he's successful in that. Those are honourable goals, but we'll have to see whether they are really achievable in terms of the specifics of his plans, because politicians make a lot of promises, but when it comes to implementation, we actually see big problems.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Anton. Let me just also bring in other leaders of various political parties. Let's probably start off with the DA. Of course, you know that Solly Msimanga had his alternative State of the Province address yesterday. Comparing your State of the Province address yesterday to the Premier's today, I mean, are there any glaring comparisons between the two?
Well, I can say that the Premier didn't disappoint in saying same old, same old. Like I said, that will be the case yesterday. I mean, I can take you through the whole speech. The promise of an retro police that is supposed to come up. The promise of an integrated transport system or using one ticket system. By the way, news for him, I launched that project in Tshwane in 2017 in May.
So he stole it from you?
No, that's it. We are already using it in Tshwane. We have a ticketing system that you can use a ticket here in Tshwane, and you can use it in Cape Town. What we have been struggling with is to make sure that there is connection with the Gautrain, so that you have that as part of the whole package. We've been hearing about the city regions, the smart city regions. You remember there was a prawn farm in Mogale. Now we're hearing again in the West Rand that there is going to now be an agro-processing plant. Nothing new. And what is more worrying and more telling is what he said right at the end. He says we can achieve all these things using the 2010 prices. To me, he's admitting that he and the government are now realizing that there's a whole lot of corruption, a whole lot of price inflation that has taken place, that what we have achieved could have actually been achieved far less than what we're actually spending and actually going forward. We are now dealing with bloated prices that even going forward, is not sustainable, and we now want to be going back.
I'd love to have this conversation with you, but unfortunately, I need to also, interview Babong Kosi there from the IFP. Thank you so much for joining us on the SABC. Perhaps your reaction. I mean, we heard the Premier said that there needs to be a township economy development bill that will be signed in later on in June. Perhaps your reaction to this?
I mean, last year he announced it in July that there will be a bill to deal with the bylaw so that we've got a synergy on how to make it easier for businesses to be created in the townships. But the biggest killer of township business is government not paying service providers on time, and also the bylaws that are not in synergy. So as the IFP, we welcome the fact that he is keeping to his promise that the bill will be coming in July this year. But we are also, as the IFP, we are also happy that one, the Premier did not mince his weight about the situation we are in. He did not paint a glossy picture. He faced the problems faced on, because there is what we call as IFP urban poverty. People are hungry in the township. People are not working. We don't have an economy that is creating jobs. Therefore, the interventions that he has announced today, we hope that corruption and greedy officials will not be in the line, because what is also worrying as the IFP is that the whole speech alone, apart from us welcoming the fact that it painted the real scenario, is that the plans are not talking to the men in the street. They are high there on top, not talking to Kumalo in Middlelands.
Thank you so much. Let me also bring in another leader of the ACDP into the fold. Thank you so much for joining us. I mean, lots of promises made, but I mean, in terms of the Premier's State of the Province address this time, there were a lot of timelines that he actually outlined, just like the release of the service stands. 10,000 houses or these service stands will be released between April and June of this year.
Yeah, basically, I think what is happening for us as the ACDP is that we're living in two different worlds. We're living in a first world country and a third world country. We just feel that there wasn't enough said with regards to what's going to happen to the real material conditions and quality of life for our people. So all these plans are good for the future. It's taking us forward to 2030. But we have basic present needs here. But we must welcome the fact that he's talking about the welfare to work program. That is near to our heart. We want that program to be successful, to get people out of grants, graduate them into work. And the second thing is the school sports. For me, that is the most important thing, because the young people is what we must develop. So as the ACDP, we are saying it's a mixture of a lot of things, but we want the gap to be closed, and that gap for me in this speech is not being closed.
Thank you so much. Let's just also rope in Bones Modise there, the leader of the ANC, or not the leader of the ANC, I beg your pardon, the ANC provincial spokesperson. Bones, I mean, in terms of the Premier's speech, is the ANC happy? Lots of promises, quite a number of timelines, but I mean, overall, is the ANC happy with the Premier's speech?
Well, Natasha, you would know that today was the first State of the Province since the passing of the MEC Nkabinde Kawe, and I'm sure you'll have seen the caucus of the ANC. The mood was not nice. We're still reflecting on her passing away. But from what the Premier was saying, we were quite excited, especially when you realize that the plan of action, it has clear timelines. In the next 10 years, Gauteng will be your industrial site. Most of the things that will be happening here in Gauteng, because we are an influx, people are coming to Gauteng almost every day. He made mention of the R21 corridor, which you and I can agree that just after the airport, there's serious construction that is taking place there. So the economy of Gauteng will, from the Premier's point of view, is to grow it through construction. And once that happens, it means you're opening up job opportunities for our people.
Bones, while we rope in another question, I hope that the EFF is actually going to come and join us soon. But I mean, the Premier didn't mince his words. He painted such a glaring picture, saying that, the Gauteng province is in a crossroads. It says that either finds pathways to inclusive growth and shared prosperity, or descend further into an abyss of poverty. I mean, take us through this statement.
Well, it is very clear. There's no debate about it. And you remember he was calling it Kwara Kwara, Naile Walk, and so on and so forth. And in true sense of the word, if we're unable to create a new path growth towards economic growth in the province, the province will be in chaos. And you would know if Gauteng is in chaos, it will affect the entire country.
Well, Bones, I neither want to add or subtract to all, what all these political spokespersons or leaders had actually said here in Gauteng. So with that, Arabi, I'll just cross back to you in studio.
Thank you so much for that, my colleague there, Natasha Piri, of course, out in Garankuwa.